Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome in to the Buddhist Biohacker Podcast. I'm Lisa Gunshore, your host. It has been a while since I have been on here, so I'm super excited. And I see there's actually a lot of you watching, so please throw in the comments where you're from, how you're feeling about this full moon, and if you're in the US, how you're feeling about the full moon and the wild things going on with our politics out there. Love to hear that. And just for everybody on here, if you're not subscribed to my channel, please do. And the channel name is changed to Channeling the Divine. So make sure you check that. So podcast, still Buddhist Biohacker, that will stay. But I'm going to be bringing out some new channeled information later this year. So when I'm ready, it'll come, but change the name of the channel. So you can put it in there. And wow, the ticker's going up. Look at all of you watching. So welcome in. Again, please share in the comments. I love to hear. You can ask questions today. This is all interactive. Love to hear where you're from. And we are joined with my very favorite, Kelly Wendorf from Equus. Welcome again, Kelly. I'm so happy to have you back.
Hey, Lisa, thank you so much for just inviting me to be here. And hi, everybody. Nice to see you all here.
Thank you. I'm really excited to talk about your course, The Wisdom of Thriving. And for all of you watching, there's a most recent episode on this channel with Kelly talking about her incredible book, Flying Lead Change. And that book was so awesome when I read it, really changing. And then I was able to go through your course, The Wisdom of Thriving, which is what we're going to talk about today. And that was so transformative. And it came at a very profound time because my stepchildren lost their stepdad. So not my husband, but their stepdad in the middle of this course. And it couldn't have happened actually at a more perfect time. And we'll just throw this in. So Emily, welcome in from Santa Fe, not thinking about politics. I hear you on that. And Barbara, welcome in also from Santa Fe. So love to see you guys here. Welcome in. And Michelle, a longtime watcher, longtime viewer. Michelle, welcome in. I think Michelle was in Vegas, but I think she's not there now, but I don't remember. So you'll have to remind me, Michelle. So I really want to jump right in, Kelly, with your course, because the very first thing when I was like, what do I want to talk about? The very first thing I want to talk about is the pillar of safety, because what I recognized right away in the course and in the group that we were with, your ability to hold safe space. And I mean, it was like a 90-minute Zoom call. I mean, it was a short amount of time each week we were meeting, really. But the depth of the work in that space and how safe we felt, and to be able to share really deep things and the profound shifts that happened even in that short time were so amazing to me. And so I want to start there, like whatever you want to say about safety, because I think we need to feel safe right now.
Yeah, we do need to feel safe right now. Well, just a little bit of context is, some of you who were listening to the podcast before about Flying Lead Change, my book, we have, 7 core principles of thriving that the horse herd teaches us. The horses are some of my most consummate teachers, and they are a 56 million year old system. They're the oldest, most successful mammal on the planet. Second only to the platypus, who's at 150 million years. And so 56 million years, if you really pause and think about that, 99% of the species who have ever been on planet Earth have gone extinct or evolved to new forms. So the horse is, what remains, that 1% that remains. And of that 1%, the oldest, second only to the platypus. So we're looking at a culture that has ensured resilience and thriving for 56 million years. Contrast that to our, 6 million. And so, what is it about them that help them to thrive? Why are they the survivors? What is it about the way they organize themselves? And of course, safety is one of those pillars of their culture. And it's an interesting word, safety. I sort of struggled when I first started articulating it in the book, because there is so much enculturation around like, oh, that's just touchy feely. And, this idea of safety is just really just kind of not, not very weighty, but it's a very powerful field and dimension of human development. And I would argue, development of just, when we work with our animals, it's the same thing, and our plants, creating spaces of safety. And I think I've often wondered why we're able to create so much safety inside the course, inside the sessions that I do here at Equus in Santa Fe. And part of it has to do with the people we attract. I've been lucky, fortunate enough that I attract really good company around me in terms of a learning community. So people come into the orbit of Equus and they are already mature, skillful, mindful people who have, done the hard yards inside their life. They come with many stories, many hardships, many victories, and have courage and persistence and character to kind of show up in their lives as visionaries, leaders in their own way, people who want to make a difference in the world. So that's part of it. And the other part of creating that safety, I think for me, is just as a professional, and you probably resonate with this, Lisa, is, it's a non-negotiable for me. It's an absolute hands down non-negotiable in the spaces that I curate. And I've been known to ask people to leave who threaten the safety of others, whether it's emotional or spiritual or psychic. And I mean it. And I think that backbone and that clarity is translated in silence across that. So yeah, so thank you for saying it. People, when our brains feel safe, and when I say brains, I also mean the entire limbic system, our neural networks. When we feel safe, we are set up to learn better. And when we do not feel safe, we don't learn. Actually, our brain cannot take on new information. So it's an important aspect. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. And I have like several things in my brain I want to say, but I think, that question of how can I create safety for myself, I think I'm still sitting with that a few months out of the course, is how do I create safety? And I'm recognizing for the first time, I think I'm really recognizing in my life where I don't feel safe. Like,
Yeah.
even in the car, like I've had some moments in the car where I'm like, I actually don't feel like safe with who's driving or with how, whatever environment I'm in, and feeling that way financially, and I'm, at the beginning, I'm like, how do you feel about politics? And it's like, that's a safety thing, right? Like, do we feel safe in our location and in our home and in our world? And I don't think there's enough emphasis on feeling safe and what a safe environment really looks like.
Yeah, well, I love that you say all that, because it's really true. I mean, in my own journey, my own continued journey towards understanding safety and embodying safety and supporting others to feel safe, I'm aware of how much I was taught as a child, as a woman, to tolerate levels of unsafety and just tolerate it, right? Tolerate that I didn't feel safe with my teachers, tolerate that I didn't feel safe in my marriages, tolerate that I didn't feel safe financially and that I deserved to create a different financial picture for myself. And so the waking up to safety kind of it was sort of a two-sided sword. On one hand, there was like, oh my gosh, look what I was tolerating. And and then the deeper you go with it, the more layers of that tolerance begin to surface. And I still find them. I have a right to say, hey, I don't feel safe with how you're driving right now. Please slow down. We get to say that instead of somebody, gaslighting us or saying, hey, just chill. No, no, I'm not going to chill. I'm going to name this thing. And so there's that part that's a little bit uncomfortable to recognize. And then there's the all that starts to flower because you are creating spaces of safety for yourself. And in that, so much starts to grow and flourish.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I'll go, even deeper with that safety piece. I did a short video on here several months ago. I'm a psychic medium, and my whole life, 18 years, I've been predicting the future. And many of you watching, I can see all your comments on here, have watched me do that and, come to me for that. And what my video stated is, I want to know the future because I don't feel safe. I mean, that's really the truth. And so I've come to an understanding that our need to be psychics, to be empaths, to understand how other people are feeling, to be able to read the room, to know what's going to happen in the future, all those things are coming from our childhoods, at least in my understanding. It's our childhoods where it begins, where we don't feel safe. So we start to try to anticipate everything. And I think we develop a lot of our sixth sense gifts out of a place of feeling not safe, not secure. And we're trying to anticipate what's next so that we can reduce our trauma.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So, yeah, I couldn't agree more. There is definitely some of the gifts that I developed have to do with my family of origin and trying to create some kind of semblance of safety for myself, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. In these 7 tenets of thriving, you also talk about care. And I think in the course, so for those of you that are interested in signing up for this course, I believe it's like one of the last classes we received an inventory, like an inventory of how we take care of ourselves. And I would say I've done a lot of those over the years, and business and school and my own coaching, studies, and nothing's really been as comprehensive, I think, as this particular inventory. And, one of the big questions around care is, how do we care or how do we not care for our body? And what are the benefits from those habits? And, everybody talks about it. Like in some ways it's everyone's already had these conversations about how we don't take care of ourselves. And I think there's a cliche kind of, I don't even know if it's a joke, but a cliche statement with a lot of coaches like, oh, go get a massage, go do this, go get a manicure, take care of yourself. But I think there's other ways that you pointed out in the inventory and in the class about how we really want to take care of our body and take care of our emotional state. And so I kind of want to dive into that a little bit and get some thoughts from you on like, what is self-care to you today? Like with all the work that you've done, and what does that really look like? Because I think it goes far beyond a massage.
Yeah, it does. Oh my gosh, it does. Wow. When was the last time I had a massage? Well, again, so just to back up and broaden the lens just a little bit. So the course goes through every principle of the horse culture, and each week is a deep dive into the theme. So one week is safety, one week is care, presence, connection, peace, and it goes on like that. So we do take a deep dive into each tenet, and care is a big one. And then, so there's a lot of examination on caretaking instead of caregiving, and learning about healthy self-entitlement and all of those aspects that are interpersonal with regards to care. And many of us value ourselves as caring people. And because of that, we'll often put ourselves last, whether it has to do with how we speak up or don't speak up or the boundaries we set. For me, self-care, well, you asked about my journey. I'll never forget, this was probably, 20 years ago. I was living in Australia. I know exactly where I was when I was having this phone call. I was sitting on my front porch. And I was talking to a healer, and she said, really, you are going to have to take much better care of yourself. And I said, what does that even mean? I don't even know what that means. And I didn't know what self-care meant. And it's been a journey of kind of figuring that out over time. And just recently, so fast forward 20 years later, right? I've been thinking about how happy I am, how good I feel, how things feel really good. And it's not because I'm getting a massage or life just happens to be treating me well right now. In point of fact, almost every week I get slammed with some major challenge as a business owner, as a ranch owner. This is just the deal. So what is it? And I think one of the biggest practices for me around care has to do with a sort of mental, emotional hygiene that happens every moment of the day. What kind of mindsets am I embracing? Am I in a victim mindset where I'm kind of feeling sorry for myself and it's everybody else's fault? Or am I in a more empowered mindset of taking responsibility for the part that I can, for the part that I do play? And over time, that mindset has shifted all kinds of perspectives about everything. And I've started to notice how things can get some of my friends really down, and I'm just really doing really well emotionally. And I think it has to do with this really core mindset. The kind of company I keep, again, if I allow people into my life that are takers, that don't really see me, that, don't really support how I live and what I do, that well-intentioned just kind of miss me. All of that takes energy. All of those relationships take a lot of energy. So doing kind of a hygiene on who I hang out with, who are my friends, and just as importantly, who are not my friends. That's a tough one, but the more honest I am about energy giving people versus energy taking people, there again, more life force I have for myself. The more I have to give to this podcast, for example, because I don't have energy wrapped up, kind of like an app running in the background, just kind of chewing away at other things that really just take energy away from what I really want to be doing. So it's dancing's a big one for me. I love to dance. Dance is so great. I'm always dancing in my living room alone. I dance between calls. I turn my music up really loud. I have big speakers so I can really play my music loud and annoy the neighbors. And that just liberates a lot of positivity for me. And of course, moving my body, exercise, what I put in my body, what I eat, of course, that's all part of it. And most recently, I've quit drinking. That's been a huge journey. And I wasn't a big drinker, but even half a cup of methylated spirits or whatever it is, ethanol, why would I put that in my body? So it's self-care is like tending a garden. What are the weeds you want to pull out, and are the weeds sucking energy, pulling attention away, diminishing our light? And what are the plants we want to cultivate? What do we want to plant in that garden? That's kind of a good metaphor for it, I think. I'm just curious if you would add anything to that, since you were impacted by that survey.
Yeah, that survey, a few things happened from that survey. There's an unfolding, right, that comes from the work in any course. But I think in this one, there's been quite an unfolding that I've experienced from the wisdom of thriving. And a couple of things. So one is, I was in the car during the course and driving someplace, and I decided to put on an album I really loved, and I was singing to it. And all of a sudden I realized, because of COVID and not traveling the way we used to for work and things like that, I just haven't been leaving my house that much, really, the last 4 years. And I realized how much I wasn't singing anymore. because I just wasn't in the car. Like I wasn't in that space where I would normally like belt out the music, just like you're saying with the dancing. Like I get in the car and I belt out the music. And that actually opened up kind of a little journey I've been on the last few weeks, which is I pulled out all of my keepsakes from my childhood and high school and everything, and started going through like all the certificates and achievements. And I have like news articles and things I wrote that were published in the newspaper and stuff like that. And really started to uncover that the things that I love that are inherently me is music. I used to play the flute and sing, and I was in theater and I was a writer. And so it's like, wow, like all this creative energy. And so self-care for me is honoring my authentic self. I think that's where I'm at today, is like, I want to honor my authentic self, and I want to pull out, I have a harmonium I've been, messing around with, but it's like, I plugged the piano. We have like an electric piano. I plugged that back in. I pulled out my old music books. I was like, you know what? Like, so self-care, like you said, it is tending a garden. And I realized how much I was caught up in the day-to-day. And there are certain things with my own work, this YouTube channel, like I've made movies, and I think there's things that I've done that are very much authentically me. And I don't think I'm doing enough. And I think music, especially, I think is the biggest thing I was missing, that I have been kind of put off to the side. You're home and you're working and you're doing things. And I haven't, it's not in my behavior to turn on the radio and sing at home. So now I'm like, okay, I need to either go on a drive and sing, or I need to find time to like turn it on in the house and sing, right?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I can feel the joy just as you talk about that. And I mean, I love my car, right? I love driving alone in my car because I can turn that music up and sing at the top of my lungs and nobody's listening. And it's kind of like a rolling sanctuary, and it's just between you and you, and it's just wonderful. So yeah, get in the car for no reason at all. Just go.
Yeah. And it's not that massages aren't important, but I think that's like this layer. And I think it's more about getting deeper. And that's what I like about this course, is the depth of the course in all 7 of these tenets. But when it came to care, it was like, wow, like this is a different way to look at care.
Yeah.
Just like, oh, you need to care for yourself. And what's funny, Kelly, is you're talking about that healer, and I channel this Egyptian being, and which is a whole other conversation for another day. But he always says to me, like, Lisa needs to take better care of herself. She needs to do this and that. He'd always go on and on about my diet and things like that. I was like, what is he talking about? And it's taken so many years later to realize, oh, I see, like, the vibration of our vessel and who we are and our own joy and our own happiness, and how we create safety with our health too, and how we take care of ourselves. So there's a lot of layers to taking care of ourselves that goes far beyond, just making sure you de-stress for the day, I think.
100%. I'll also add to my self-care, silliness. Silliness is, it releases so many feel-good hormones in my body. And my daughter is just the queen of silly. And anytime I can get time with her, and we're just laughing our heads off about the dumbest things. And there's a part of me in my authentic expression that is really, really silly. And so that part needed a place to express. So, and anything that feels good and feels almost indulgent in a way, is the way to go. But yes, it's so multi-layered, and hopefully that survey actually helps kind of light up some of those areas that we don't normally consider self-care. So.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's a good one. And Barbara is sharing, I'll come to the comments for a minute. So true. It's how you feel when you are with someone. Are you uplifted or spent? Isn't that true? And then look at everybody joining us. Bill in Spain. Wonderful. Marilyn.
Hi, Bill. Oh, yeah. Bill. I know Bill.
Oh, that's awesome. Marilyn, I'm so happy to see you. I think Marilyn, I don't know where you are anymore, Marilyn. You were in Montana or something. I don't remember. Janine from London. We have Faith coming in. So hi, Faith. And Michelle, yes, she was in Vegas. Now she's in Ohio to live with her 94-year-old dad. So way to go to you, Michelle, for taking care of your dad. That's a big process. And Melanie in DC. We have Deborah in Texas. So welcome in to everybody who's out there. And please ask questions to me and Kelly. You can join in the conversation in the comments. And going back to what Barbara's saying here about, are you uplifted or spent? And what you were sharing, Kelly, too, about, who's taking energy and who's giving energy and what does that look like? I want to segue that with an experience and a quote from your course. So you have a quote from Charlotte. I think is it Jo Kopek? Is that how you say her name? For joy. And she says, joy is exactly what's happening, minus our opinion of it. Joy is not about happy or unhappy, wanting or not wanting, liking or disliking. Joy is unconditionally accepting each moment for what it is. And I want to share a little story because this happened during the course also. I had a lot of, whenever you enter into something, I think entering into this course, for those of you that are interested, I think things start to happen, right? Things start to unfold.
Yes, they do. Things start to happen.
They do. And I had a lot happen. And one of the things that happened when we were in the middle of the course was someone who I felt was a very dear friend of mine, never in a million years expected them to not be in my life, made the decision to not be in my life. And it was a real bummer. And there was a change in my reaction. And it came from this joy quote specifically, which was, normally I would overthink. I might even reach out to her and say, like, what happened? And I want to understand and all these things. And instead, I just really went into a place of acceptance that was their choice. And I've been there too. I've had to make choices to end relationships, right? And so I really came into this place of acceptance. And for the first time, I really didn't spin on it. It was kind of amazing. I felt okay. It was like, okay, like that was her choice and I'm sad about it. And I had my grieving about it, and I didn't talk to everybody about it. I didn't go on and on with my husband about it. I didn't, go on social media and talk about it. Like, I really just let it go. And it gave me a new understanding of what joy really is. And that release of energy. And I feel like, to me, that's almost what joy is. It's like, it's releasing all the tangled webs of energy. So you just feel free.
Yeah, exactly. I love that example. Conventional kind of understanding of joy would have us imagine that joy is like happiness, right? And once we relegate joy to that really narrow definition, then we relegate it to this polarity thinking of good, bad, right, wrong, happy, sad, but joy, as I define it and as I understand it, and my experience of joy is that vast state, that emotional dimension of human experience that holds all the other experiences, positive and negative. The more you're able to hold your grief or be with your grief, the more you're able to have a sense of joy in your life. The more you're able to acknowledge and be with your rage, the greater capacity for joy that you have. Joy is the result of being okay with all the human experience, so-called bad and so-called good. It takes you out of that polarized thing of, oh, I shouldn't be feeling this way, or this shouldn't have happened, or this isn't the way it should go. And just completely, it kind of takes us out of that level of human existence and elevates us to something that is much more, I'm just going to say the word true because I don't know how else to describe it, but that, brings us into the isness of life, just as it is, some of it difficult, some of it easy, some of it sublime, some of it really dark. That whole gamut, that is life. And when we finally, like you did with this example with your friend, just go, this just is what it is, then this door opens up and joy is available as a byproduct.
Yeah. And it's a beautiful thing. And, I wrote down in my notes from the course, be with all things as it is, all my feelings and all of the experiences. And I think, that's something that I think is hard for our brains to wrap, or we can't wrap our minds around it, because it's not just, I love what the yogi gurus say, from the Vedic scriptures, all truths exist at once.
Yes.
That's a hard thing to accept, is like, wow, and the US right now politically is a great example, right? Like there's one experience happening for Democrats, there's one experience happening for Republicans, and guess what? They're all real. They're all true.
For and all those people.
And I heard, so Rob Gauthier is the ET whisperer, and he's been on the show, and he was on Interviews with EDs on, I think it's on Netflix. But anyway, he channeled this really amazing interdimensional being. And that being said, specifically about politics in the US, the being said that the point was for all of us collectively to see and understand the corruption and the challenges with our political system and what needs to change, and that the experiences, while very different, and the truths, while very different, are teaching the same lesson. And that really stuck out to me in conjunction with this idea of joy. It's a freedom of acknowledging that there aren't these, you said it, the polarization, there aren't these polarized right or wrong. And it's true with Carl Jung, and he talks about shadow work, right? We have to embrace the shadow. It's, anger exists, love exists, hate exists, joy exists, sadness exists. All these things exist at one time. And I think all of those truths are real, in that the joy is the freedom. I think it's the freedom of just allowing it all to exist and stop having all this judgment and opinions and the self-loathing. I think that we have, there's a lot of self-loathing that comes along with feeling negative or destructive emotions, as the Buddhists would say, right? But it's really letting that go is the joy.
It's self-loathing, it's shame, it's judgment on others, it's shame on others, that whole Maya, to use that word. And, again, you have to be willing to really hang out in what you're pointing to, Lisa. This idea of joy isn't some feel-good platitude. It's not some, Pollyanna, let's all just be positive and do positive affirmations. That's not what this is. It's actually an embodiment of the recognition that all of the experiences that show up in our awareness are just all the experiences that show up in our awareness. That's it. Are we going to say, and now we're getting a little in the weeds of it, but are we going to say that, happiness is of God and sadness isn't? Are we going to say, this part of the human experience is God and this part over here is not? I mean, how dare we even be so assumptive? So the whole thing is just life force. That's what it is. It's life force. And if you drop in and experience and be willing to experience the feelings and sensations as is, you notice that, okay, anger is an unpleasant sensation, but that's about it. It's just an unpleasant sensation. There's nothing, it's not dangerous. It's not, we do dangerous things with it when we're not comfortable with anger, but it's just a spiky, hot, red kind of unpleasant experience. And happiness is a kind of warm, pleasant experience. That's really it in terms of values. Right?
Yeah, totally agree.
That's a pretty radical way of living, but that's what you're all about anyway. So
Well, yeah, I mean, that's it though. The radical, radical self-care and, radical joy and a radical understanding. I mean, that's all of those things are radical. And yet that's it. Like that's
natural, right? Totally.
Yeah, it's the solution. It's the golden truth that everyone is looking for, is just to be with what is. And there's a lot of uncomfortable things we have to experience, or we choose to experience in this life, really. But we're choosing to experience them to, evolve our consciousness. And I think it's important for us to remember that. And the other thing I'll say about joy too is, I remember years and years ago, I was trying to channel. I wanted to trance channel. Like that was my mission. I was like practicing every day and doing all these activities. I was like really intense about it. And I remember having this experience. I went through this, guided meditation to go up into the causal plane. And I had this experience with the energy of Jesus, and it was joy. And at that moment, it was like joy never meant the same thing to me again, which is why I love this quote that you shared in the course, because that is what it was. It was like, it was liberation. It was not this like super high, sometimes we can get spiritual highs from experiences. It was just this pure essence of, and I get goosebumps when I talk about pure essence of liberation. That's what the joy was. And I'd never felt anything like that before until that experience. And it's always stuck with me. And so I really love, not just in the book, Flying Lead Change, but how we talked about it in the course too, and how to create joy is really the whole course to me. Really, that was it, was to learn how to create joy in my life. That was the whole point of the Wisdom of Thriving, was this is how I'm going to create joy, is letting go of the things that I'm holding on to that I don't need to, allowing things to come in that maybe I was holding myself back from, like all of those pieces.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah. That's why the course does culminate in joy at the end, and everything is leading into and weaving into supporting the individual parts of the course, and then finally culminating into joy. So, and I love that you really resonate and get a real felt sense of what we're really talking about here. So it's beautiful.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah. We have Morena from New Zealand. I hope I pronounced that right. So welcome in. And Michelle's sharing, I used to let energy vampires take over, and I'd feel so drained after visiting with them. Won't be doing that in the future. Yes, for sure. Mm-hmm. And Barbara's throwing in the word authenticity. Yes, exclamation point to that. And Karen, welcome in. Hi to both of you. We both know Karen. You're so amazing also. So we could talk all day, I feel like, and I want to create some space for you, Kelly, just to share a little bit about what everyone can expect from the course when they sign up. I think it's important. I think we all like this, another safety thing. Knowing what we're getting ourselves
we're getting into, right? Yeah, wonderful. Thank you for pointing that out. So it's 8 weeks. It's an hour and a half every week. Virtually, of course. And in between the sessions, we have homework that is experientially based. So the homework is, we don't task load you so that you're inundated with homework, but it's designed to help you really wade into the waters of the experience of shifting your life to be in more alignment with these life-giving, regenerative principles. And during the course, or during each session, there is, some, we of course start with the material that I'm teaching in the class, and then we do some breakout rooms and journaling and sharings, and it's pretty rich. It's multi-layered in that way. And then, when you take the Wisdom of Thriving, it actually tees you up for other experiences inside the Equus curriculum that you can't do unless you've taken the Wisdom of Thriving. So it in itself opens the door to some certification trainings and a wisdom circle and other things that are available to folks that have taken this first step.
Yeah. And I'll add to that too, from my own experience with the course, that you know, the weekly meetings really open up for you some things to look at, I feel. And it's a safe space where I think all of us, and there were several of us in the meeting, but we came out of it, I think, with all these different aha moments. And then the homework comes and it just really expands it even more. It's just this, you know, I always think of the lotus flower and how it opens petal by petal. And that's exactly what it's like each week. It's like, oh, now I'm going to go have this, you know, go out in nature, whatever the experience is, and the self-inquiry questions. And and then you work with partners, and that also opens things up. So it's really quite an experience to go through. And I think if you're ready for it and you're ready to commit to it, it's so transformative. And I also want to share, you know, we had this very tragic and unexpected death that really impacted my immediate family and my stepchildren. And it was very intense in the middle of this course. And I was still able to stay with the course. And the course actually supported me through what was happening. And the homework did, and the people did. And so that says a lot, because I think sometimes we sign up for courses that we think are going to be good, and then you drop off. You know, you can't. This really, what you've created, Kelly, that I felt was really profound, because I've done a lot of trainings and courses and things, is that I felt held in the course and in the practices and in what was happening. I never felt pulled away, even when I had such an intense life experience happening. And I think that says a lot about what you've created and how you've put it all together, because I never felt outside of the circle.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much. That means the world to me, because it really is. It's why I designed it, and it's what I aspire to create for people. And just the other day, somebody said to me, I am so glad I signed up for Wisdom of Thriving now during this election, so that I will have this good company during this crazy 100 days we have ahead of us. So, you know, it's interesting that the timing was such. It wasn't deliberate on my part, but, you know, I hope too that it can be a place for people to take shelter and keep a sane perspective through what I think is going to be a really intense couple of months for us. So, yeah.
So agree. I mean, it's we're in for it, I feel. And it'd be a great thing to be tethered to during this time, I feel. And you know, want to share a couple of things too. So if you're not subscribed to the Equus YouTube channel, please go over and do that now also. I noticed that you had a talk that was posted with Thunder Bear, and started listening to that this morning myself. And that is really amazing. So if you all want to get even more connected, I would absolutely go to the Equus YouTube channel and connect in there. And I also just want to point out your newsletters and your essays, because again, I've become, you know, when we talk about our self-care, right, and what gives and what takes, there's quite a few newsletters out there that take. And, you know, you start deleting emails and things like that. And yours is, I look forward to it when it comes. I save them. I do the work. I probably text 3 or 4 people, like, look at these self-inquiry questions. Even the one on tension you just did was like, oh, this is profound. So I just really want to point that out, and would love to hear from you, because, you know, I've been kind of offline. I think most everybody on here knows that. I really haven't been doing a lot with my own work. And I'm really inspired by all of your essays and your self-inquiry questions. And it's prompted me to think about, like, what do I want my contribution to be to my community and my newsletters? So what are your inspirations? I want to know, like, where do they come from, or I'm sure it's different every week, but I just am curious, like, what's your thoughts about that? Because I love them so much.
Thank you.
That work.
Thank you so much. You know, I'm right now, my cheeks are starting to hurt because I'm smiling so much. I'm feeling the generosity of just this conversation, really appreciating it. Thank you. Because I really work hard, and I've got a wonderful marketing team with Janine and Leah and Zoe to just provide value every time we communicate as much as possible. And I am a prolific writer. Words are always coming to me. I always bring my phone with me on a hike for recording purposes, so that, because things just come when I'm walking and hiking and riding and playing with the dogs or whatever. And so I'll just capture it. And I'm just very grateful for that muse that comes in all the time. It won't shut up. Thank you. Thank you. And I just pour it into the Equus communications, and I also bounce off other people's insights and things. I'm a voracious reader, and I'm always got an audiobook in the car if I'm not singing like you to music. And so I bounce off of ideas, and just, there's really nothing that original. It's just like, oh yeah, that point we could go really deep on, like the tension point. We could take such a deep dive on tension. Let's do it. So I have fun with it. I have a lot of fun with it. Yeah.
I love it. Well, I want you to know it's read and appreciated. And I love those self-inquiry questions, because I think once, I've been working with self-inquiry for, I don't even know, 15 years or more now. And it's not like you run out of things to ask yourself. And it's nice to have those prompts, because I think it really gives you something to think about. And they're usually very timely for me. So I just really want to point that out too to everybody out there. If you're not on the mailing list, it's a mailing list to join, and one you're not going to just delete because you're sick of seeing it, kind of thing. Like, I think it's one you want to dive into, which I love as well. So, and thank you, Janine. I don't know who you are, but I appreciate your kind words. And, yes, I'm passionate about all of these things, because I think we need this, you mentioned it, Kelly, with the election year in the United States. And I just think, we're in the Kali Yuga.
Yeah,
Mike, is that the right word? It sounded wrong. Where are we? And, years ago, I was at the Kala Chakra for World Peace with the Dalai Lama, and he spoke about the Kali Yuga in a teaching. There was only probably 5,000 of us at that teaching, versus later in the week. And, it's such a time of collapse of what we think. And so I think this work, whether it's your essay and it's a self-inquiry practice, or whether it's diving into your course, I think what I love about your work and you is that it's supporting us to make big changes and to transform this Plutonian darkness into, oh, my ear's ringing while I say this now. That's interesting. Into the light. It's an excavation of the self. And we need that now, because that is the call to action of this time frame. I mean, that's what we're here to do, is to excavate all of the ick from underneath, and recognize that the ick is actually like a huge part of what makes human beings so cool and interesting. You know?
That's right. Yeah, no, it's true. And I feel we're not designed to do it alone. So, it's wonderful that you have this platform, Lisa, for people to gather, because we all need to gather in good company, and know that there are other people out there like us who resonate with similar values, who are rolling up their sleeves to do the hard work. And it just makes our job as individuals that much more, accessible and a little easier. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, before we close, I'd love for you to share. So for everybody, it's down underneath, there's a ticker, and we'll put it in the show notes and all of that as well. But Kelly, if you want to share with everyone when the course starts, the next round, and how they can join, that way they know what to do here, especially for those of you on audio later. You'll want to know if you are driving in your car hearing us.
Yeah, wonderful. So the class starts pretty soon. It's August 7th is when it starts. Wednesdays, 5 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. Mountain, and goes through to September 25th. And we have this special early bird that we extended, especially because we were having this conversation with you. So that early bird price which is now extended. So it's $2,500 until July 30th. And then for this group, we have another additional 10% off. So that's, I think a $550 savings if people jump to it pretty quickly, just to make it happen. And there's a payment plan people can do as well. It just makes it easy. And Equus Inspired is the website, and Equus Inspired are all the different, Instagram, YouTube. I can't remember the rest. LinkedIn. My team will kill me for saying that, but anyway.
You're everywhere, and you're on YouTube. So I'll remind everybody one more time, go to the Equus YouTube page. Please, if you're new to my channel, please subscribe also, because I'm coming out. I promise. I'll come back out of my hole. I'm a Scorpio with Cancer rising. So I go in a hole sometimes.
You are gestating, and that's so important, as we know when we watch how soil compost for making beautiful gardens. And then there's also a really wonderful special that we are offering to your listeners and viewers. It's 50% off my book, and there's a link as well to that offer. So Wisdom 10 is the 10% off of Wisdom of Thriving, and Podcast 50, if you go onto our website, equisinspired.com, and go to the shop and enter Podcast 50, you'll receive a copy of my book for half off. So
that's so awesome. If you haven't read the book, Flying Lead Change, I'm reading it for the third time. And there's so much you get out of it every single time. I love it so much. And here's Equus. So there's their YouTube channel right there, Equus Inspired. So definitely go over and subscribe there as well. Kelly, I love you. I'm so excited to meet you in person soon. I'm excited for that.
You're here.
Yeah, so excited. And every time I say goodbye, my dog has to come say goodbye to everybody. So this is Ludwig, everybody, my little rescue. He's a good boy. He's like, I know the voice inflections are changing. Something's happening. And then for all of you who follow the Buddhist Biohacker Podcast, I only have a few shows the rest of this year for the podcast. I'm really excited to have the Graceful Movement on. She's a really wonderful woman who's living in London right now, and you can find her at the Graceful Movement on Instagram, and excited to dive in with her. And Katie Silcox from the Shakti School will be back on this fall as well. And then we have a really special guest, Dr. Jennifer Freed is going to be on in October. And she's actually an astrological psychologist. So if you haven't dug into her work, her book is really cool. So she talks about the immature to mature evolution of your chart and the signs in the chart, so that you can really understand how to evolve yourself through your own astrology. So she's cool too. So that's what I have upcoming the rest of the year. And I'll be back online soon, I promise. But we do have to go in sometimes to rediscover ourselves, to know what we want to do when we come back out. So thank you so much to everybody for being here. And Kelly, I just really thank you so much for being on here. So much love to you. And everybody hang in there, buckle up. It's going to be a ride. But just remember, when you go outside, there's no ride. There's your trees and your grass and your animals, and they're not doing all that. So just remember to take your breaks, come up for air from whatever you're getting involved in with all the things in the world. So much love, and take care, everybody. Have a good day.
Lisa. Bye, everybody. Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Oh, Ludwig, it's okay.